You're listening to 106.9 Tune FM, and today, the 15th of April, is a World Art Day where, everyone around the world celebrates art, artists in all of its various forms. So today with me, I have again in the studio the wonderful Professor Marty Branagan. Thank you for joining us.
No worries. Glad to be here.
As always, it's great to have you. And, we've spoken a lot about art and its roles in the past, particularly when it comes to peace, as you're the convener of peace studies here. You've done a lot of work in that space, but you're also an artist yourself. So I guess starting with the big question, what does art mean to you as an artist, as a person, as a scholar even? Take your pick.
It's a huge question because art can be very obvious stuff like a photorealist painting, or it can be simply very abstracted, not just in terms of painting, but just in terms of ideas. So, you can have things that are a little more than ideal, like an installation that's very minimalist, and that can be art as well. So, yeah, it's wonderfully free. That's the great thing about art. It can be very left field. It can be didactic in the sense of teaching you stuff, but it can also simply be extending the limits of art. What exactly is art? And often it gets you thinking quite deeply about everything, about life, about what art is, and about society.
Yeah. What got, you've been doing art for a while. What sort of drew you to art in the first place?
I always loved going to art galleries and looking at great art. I was lucky to go to the Louvre in Paris when I was quite young, and that was inspirational. And in some ways it was fantastic to see a really wide range of art and see that anyone can be an artist. You don't have to be born an artist. You can very gradually learn how to be an artist and be self-taught and find your own direction. And that's, as someone who taught art at TAFE here before art was taken out of the curriculum, it's great to be able to teach people simply to try and find their own direction, not to necessarily copy. You try and learn from the greats, but the main thing is to try and develop your own voice.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's really interesting to me about art is how, I guess, divisive something can be when it comes to art, something as simple as, the way in which a different installation is installed across various galleries. I'm thinking specifically there of, I don't remember the name of it, but it was by a gay gentleman whose partner passed away during the AIDS epidemic, and so he had an installation that was wrapped lollies and sweets equaling the weight of his partner, and gallery goers were invited to take a lolly, take a candy, take a chocolate, and slowly that installation dwindled away, and that was the whole point of it. And there was a similar installation with two clocks that were in sync, and they were just left, and then slowly as the batteries degraded, they would fall out of sync, and that was, again, hearkening back to his experiences as a gay man during the AIDS epidemic and things like that. So there's a really wide range of art. It just depends on how you, I guess, relate to it and engage with it. Do you have any favorite artists or favorite art pieces that really spoke to you or still speak to you?
Oh, yeah, a huge number. Lynn Onus, Aboriginal artist, is one of my absolute all-time favourites. Really deep messaging. Melbourne-based guy that gradually learnt more about traditional Aboriginal cultures by going up to the Northern Territory and getting permission to use cross-hatching art. And then he created this unique combination of traditional Aboriginal art and very modern art, but every work has the most poignant message in it. But just going back to the artist you were talking about, one of the great artistic events of the year is the Mardi Gras.
True.
Which began as a protest, and over the years has become much bigger and more flamboyant. Huge money, brings in a lot of money. Some people are a bit concerned that the protest element has been lost and it's a bit been commercialised and capitalised, but it's still an incredible event that's now supported by the state government and the transport. The Prime Minister has marched with it. So in some ways that shows how protest through culture, through flamboyance and costume and performance and music can really change the mores of a culture.
Yeah. And I mean, art is so varied. I think you say art, most people sort of think of its traditional forms, painting, drawing, collage, sculpture, but fashion is art, performance is art, music is art, writing is art. It's very varied, even in just the way that different cultures engage with it, what it means to them. And one of the things that we're seeing, which, you know, I want to touch on this a little bit because it's just so rampant, is the increased use of generative AI in art. You know, what is your take on art that's produced by AI? Is it art? Is it not? I'm not a big fan of AI, given that a lot of it is stolen from academics, from writers, from musicians. A lot of stuff taken without permission or at least with people not realising that their stuff's being taken. So generally not a fan of it in art. I think it has amazing potential in science, provided it's used well and not to profit a minority, but to help the majority. And yeah, I think in some ways it's never really going to replicate human thought and human creativity. There was a comedian I saw recently who did a piece that was written by AI, and he went out, he didn't tell anyone that it had been written by AI, he just did this performance, and it was very unfunny. He knew it was not funny, and the audience just sat there and there was not many laughs. So, you know, it's got a long way to go before it can catch up. Yeah, and there's, you know, from a copyright perspective as well, I've spoken to Dr. Willett Potter. In order to be copyright, it has to have a human authorship. With AI, where do you prove the human authorship, you know? But going back to what you were saying about art as protest, you know, art has such a profound place in protest. I mean, if you ask someone, they're probably going to say Banksy, you know, probably the biggest name in art as a form of protest that most people can think of in the modern day. But also I think Shostakovich as well, a lot of his music was very much a form of protest against the Russian government at the time. And you've sort of touched on this as well a lot, in how art as a form of culture can be used as a tool to build peace. What is it about art that makes it such a powerful tool in that regard? With people like Shostakovich living in a totalitarian regime, it's quite difficult to come out openly against the government, as students are finding in Myanmar. So that's where you need to be a little bit subtle, a little bit cautious. You can create pieces of music like Shostakovich did, or Prokofiev, that's coded, that it's really hard for the authorities to say, well, that's subversive, and yet everyone knows. That's one of the great things. You can get out a message even in the most difficult of circumstances.
And in a lot of ways, the subtleness of art, and particularly if you can make it aesthetically pleasing or something that grabs the emotions or really engages the intellect, then it's a lot better than something that's a bit more prosaic. Making speeches, writing papers, all of that, that's really important. But scientists have been writing about climate change for a long, long time, and really we need a cultural revolution. All the artists, as someone was saying to me recently, because I'm writing a cli-fi novel at the moment, he's saying all novels should be cli-fi at the moment, climate fiction.
Mm. Yeah, it's definitely a genre that I'm particularly interested in myself. It's got a lot of real-world applications and real-world hard-hitting, thought-engaging pieces to it as well. Was there something that inspired you to do climate fiction other than just, the state of the world we live in? Was there a particular event?
I think what got my last novel started, which is also cli-fi, was being at the Byron Bay Blues Fest, which I'm about to go to next week.
The last hurrah.
Supposedly the last one. And yeah, just the incredible music was so inspiring, and I thought of the band from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Disaster Area.
Oh, yeah.
It's the loudest, not only band in the universe, but the loudest noise anywhere. And I thought, gee, it'd be really nice to, take on some of those characters from The Hitchhiker's Guide and write something about contemporary climate activism.
Yeah, which, is an element that I don't see a lot in novels, and it brings in a lot of your life experiences and a lot of your academic experiences as well, which I think is a fantastic way to go about it. Is there an element to it that is this a common element in your art, whether it be writing or paintings or drawings?
Yeah, I began doing art when I was still very much an activist, but I could see that just going to blockades wasn't really enough. It wasn't enough for me, and I wanted to be able to appeal to different dynamics. If you're out in the middle of the desert in South Australia protesting against a uranium mine and the nuclear industry, you might get a bit of media coverage if you're lucky, but it's good to be able to have art exhibitions where you get a range of people coming along, people putting up music, people writing stuff, just trying to broaden your audiences, basically.
Yeah, no, for sure. Is there somewhere, because I think I've seen some of your art, on your staff profile and your website, is there somewhere that people can go to find your art in particular, or the other artists that you mentioned that you're really into?
So I've got an art website with Arts Northwest. There's a little bit on my staff UNE page, but I've also got an exhibition coming up in August.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
In the Armidale Art Gallery in the mall. So some of my more recent work is going to be available to be seen there. Yeah. But also if you can afford to buy my novel, so there's a paperback that's available in the local library, but there's also an illustrated e-version with 50 artworks, which are mainly mine, but there's also a few collaborations with Aboriginal artists like Warwick Keane. And the cover of my book is by a Yuin artist, Uncle Lloyd Hornsby, as well. He very generously allowed me to use that as his cover.
Yeah, beautiful. And the art on your most recent book that we talked about, the culture...
the cultural dimensions of peace
building. Was that an art piece done by yourself as well?
No, that was found by the publishing company. But there is a collaboration in there by my daughter and myself, and some art from various students and other friends and young people that I wanted to use and, get their names out a bit and get them a bit better known as artists.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have any advice for aspiring artists, for artists out there who may be feeling a little bit, what's the point of things these days? Any words of wisdom that you want to share?
Well, it's a really great way of dealing with the world. When I was with Tune FM back quite a while back, it was during the era of John Howard, and a mate and I used to write little radio skits and perform them, and it was just when you were just horrified by what he was doing and dragging us into war, for example, it was wonderful to be able to poke fun at him. And I think other people enjoy that, and that's what brings down these people with a lot of power, is people laughing at them.
Yeah, it's something that I think is a common theme, and I think for a very good reason. You can't... If you try and debate people, they kind of want that, because that means you have to listen to them. But if you just call them weird, if you just laugh at them, there's not a lot that you can do in the face of just being laughed at, except to just laugh along. And people who enjoy having power over other people don't like laughing at themselves, is something that I've experienced. But I wanted to thank you again so much for coming in today. I think it's not one of our longer chats, but I think it is an impactful one, and hopefully, we can share the ideas of art and getting involved in it, particularly through this idea of a cultural revolution. Is there anything that I've not asked or we've not touched on that you want to share that's really important?
It's just always a pleasure talking with you, Ash, and it's great to be still involved with Tune FM.
Yeah.
After all these years, it's
maybe we'll find the old skits in the archives somewhere, see if we can dig them up. Well, thank you so much for joining me as always, Marty. It's always a pleasure talking to you as well.
Great. Thanks, Ash.